Welcome to the annual USSR Gymnastics display. For the last 2 decades, the Soviet Union has dominated world gymnastics, and this is the 16th year that they've brought a team of their top gymnasts to Western Europe to demonstrate the skills which make them, quite simply, the best in the world. This year, they're parading 10 gold medalists from the last Olympics, including the overall women's champion, Elena Shushunova, and the men's gold medalist, Vladimir Artyomov, plus numerous individual apparatus champions. All 3 branches of gymnastics, artistic, rhythmic, and sports acrobatics, will be on display. And for once, there'll be no judges and no competition. So just sit back and enjoy it. With me, the former British champion, Monica Phelps. Mon, a chance for the gymnasts to show off and let their hair down, but also some indication of the direction that Soviet gymnastics is going in.
Yes, John, very interesting, because we see the full Olympic team from Seoul on the women's side, headed, of course, by Elena Shushunova. The rest of the girls are young, so it looks as though they could be traveling the world together this year. Here they are, about to do their opening sequence. Included in women's gymnastics, other than the tumbling elements, which we see on the floor, are the varied dance movements. And the girls treat this somewhat as a warm-up, but they can control absolutely every body part. They're all extremely good dancers, and they let their hair down a little bit, and instead of working to the classical music, they work to pop music. Boginskaya, bronze medalist, Shevchenko, Baitova, Olga Strazheva, who won a team medal but was injured, Natalia Laschenova, and of course were introduced first to Elena Shushunova. This is a warm-up, but produced in a very entertaining manner, including some of the balletic movements and the gymnastic movements that we see in all the women's floor exercises, especially these suppling elements. The body preparation is very, very important to make them strong and lithe and able to cope with some of the demanding routines. Moving on now to simple acrobatic elements. The finished product looking very polished, but the main fun is in the practice when the girls are trying to choreograph the routine. Mostly they make up this floor routine themselves. gradually progressing the difficulty of the tumbling elements from flick-flacks to somersaults with twists and half-twists. Now to double back somersaults and double twisting somersaults. Olympic bronze medalist Boginskaya. This her asymmetric bar routine. One of 4 disciplines in the women's event. There a Kachev, copied from the men's high bar. Similar routine to that which she performed in Seoul, but with an even more difficult dismount. That's interesting. She put a full twist in that double back somersault. Baitova, 17-year-old, she made her debut in the 1987 European Championships. And unusually, she made so many mistakes. We didn't expect to see her back in the senior national squad. But she too was an Olympic gold team medalist. Svetlana obviously carrying a few extra pounds, but of course this is the off-season, and after a very strenuous competition year, including the Olympic Games, they do deserve a little bit of a rest. But they'll soon shed the weight because of their tremendous competitive and training timetable in the coming year. The World Championships later in Stuttgart, and if Svetlana hopes to make that team, she'll certainly have to slim down.
Performing to music and with spotlights, that of course would not be allowed in competition. There'd be a constant light and no music. The only gymnastics exercise that's performed to music is the women's floor.
Only managing a full twisting back somersault from the Arab Spring dismount, preventing injury because she's carrying quite a few pounds in this winter season.
And there's another young lady, not looking quite as fit as she did when she took the Olympic gold medal, Shushunova. One of the great gymnasts of all time, Shushunova, onto the asymmetric bars.
Works with amazing speed. Shushunova, one of the strongest and most original asymmetric bar workers in the world. And despite the added weight, performs just as well as she did in the Olympics, where she gathered a bronze medal on that piece of apparatus.
The great Shushunova. Welcome back. And it's Laschenova with a beam exercise, that very difficult front somersault mount. And Monica, she's looking in very good shape.
Yes, I would suspect that she's training for the European Championships, which of course are in May. I feel that... Oh, that's beautiful work. I feel that Laschenova really was hopeful at the Seoul Olympics and it all went wrong. And I think she's being schooled to be perhaps their next top gymnast.
A brilliant performer. There is no team competition in the European Championships. So whilst most of the team are probably planning their program to peak a little later in the year, we'll be looking for 3 of the Soviet gymnasts to be at the European Championships.
Laschenova, one of the most powerful female gymnasts. Her somersaulting on the beam is the highest that I've ever seen in the world. She has all of the ingredients, the strength, the range of movement, and the skill. And I think that the only aspect she needs to develop is her competitive temperament. She's made a few mistakes in major championships, but once she gets her head together, I'm sure she could be the greatest.
And significantly, they're finishing with a double back somersault.
And returning to the women, Shevchenko. Shevchenko in Seoul was a tremendous anchor to the Soviet women's team, going up first on every piece of apparatus and turning in immaculate performances.
She certainly didn't do that. Difficult combination at the start of her beam exercise, just slightly offline, and in competition that would have been 0.5 away. Heavily strapped right ankle, but landed on it really well there. Again, having to adjust. That should have been a continuous sequence.
But interestingly, performing some new elements from her Seoul routine. So perhaps she too is hoping to get into the European squad. Because Shevchenko, although not one of the most talented of the Russian gymnasts, has proved to be a very, very strong competitor. She rarely makes a mistake. And of course, the new elements have got to be tested somewhere, and where better than one of these displays where there aren't any judges to penalize them, and there is a nice big audience to appreciate their skill.
Svetlana Baitova. Her floor exercise.
Baitova is really going to have some work to do to trim down that figure. She must be more overweight than any of the Russian gymnasts I've ever seen in the off-season. Normally extremely slender and really suffering for that extra poundage. Big tricks missing, but still plenty of that old Russian elegance. Like the women, I don't think Zharkov's been doing too much resting. And now to floor, Natalia Laschenova. A real little powerhouse. floor exercise combining the grace of a ballerina and the skill of a tumbler. A lot of gymnasts are performing the big double backs these days, but not many of them can cope with them as easily as Natalia Laschenova.
On the floor, Shevchenko. Just throwing forward, we have the European Championships in May, and of the 6 girls from the winning Soviet Olympic team, I'd put my money on Laschenova and Shevchenko certainly going to the European Championships.
Yes, John, I think I'd agree with you, and it looks as though they're being put to the test, because it's not often in displays that the gymnasts go to such lengths as putting in a new move. Here she's working extremely hard on what looks to be a new routine with new elements. Even mats on the corners to preserve that right ankle. To be another big tumble. Yes, finishing with a double back. And it looks distinctly as though Shevchenko is training for something big in the very near future. Could it be the European Championships?
From the floor to the asymmetric bars, Olga Strazheva.
Strazheva had a very disappointing Olympics, falling from the beam and badly injuring her knee, so she had to withdraw from the competition. But nevertheless, she contributed to the team and won a team gold medal.
Viktor Gavrichenko, the coach there, standing in as she came back over the high bar from the catcher to make sure there was no injury there. You see that left knee, but Mogielny always succeeds.
Olga Strazheva to the beam. An excellent gymnast, but still bearing the scar from Seoul, a bandage around that left knee, which she injured at the Olympic Games. Obviously back into training fully. Almost a new breed of Russian gymnasts, not quite so frail, very, very strong legs to cope with the difficult tumbling on the beam and on the floor. type of exercises the gymnasts do very much determine the shape that they end up. If they're doing an awful lot of leg work, they develop particularly strong muscular legs. Double back dismount, all of the elements required for competition, and I think that she is looking for a place perhaps in the European or probably the World Championship team. She looks quite fit.
Welcome back to Eurosport and the finale of the USSR Gymnastics display. Elena Shushunova on the floor, the world floor champion and the Olympic overall champion.
Shushunova, a very dynamic tumbler, and they're putting in a new element, not quite managing it, but she doesn't matter when she's putting a new element to the test. A very cleverly choreographed routine, because Shushunova doesn't find the dance elements quite as easy to learn as she does the tumbling. Just causing an obstruction as she worked out of that Arabian dive roll and cleverly catching up with the music. Rarely see Shushunova twisting at the end of her floor routine, but she'd obviously run out of steam.
This is the moment, the men's four being the biggest team, there's pairs and there's a women's three as well, but there's also an individual competition. The tumblers are the individual performers in this branch of the sport.
And tumbling is all about speed, and in competition the performers have to compete two particular runs. One, a somersault run where they combine flick-flacks and somersaults and try and produce as many somersaults as they can within 5 skills, and then another tumbling routine where they produce twists.
And of course it's something that the artistic gymnasts have to excel at as well. Both vaulting and the floor exercise involve tumbling acrobatics. To start off this display, Sergei Pogiva, 22-year-old specialist tumbler. Double back somersault to finish with the end of that run.
And the piece of apparatus where the line is drawn down, this is a guidance line to keep the gymnast in a straight line and therefore accumulate as much speed and control as possible, is commonly called a ski run because the first were made out of actual wooden skis.
Elena Shushunova, the Olympic champion, just honing her tumbling skills there. All the artistic gymnasts will spend a lot of time on tumbling runs during their training, just warming up at the moment.
The actual ski run is more akin to a trampoline than it is to a floor because underneath the wood there are rubber springs. You see the reaction that the gymnasts get out of the floor. It actually rebounds with them.
Gogolatsa there. Now Sergei Pogiva. Whip back somersault, and a double somersault to finish with.
Flick-flacks here from Shevchenko, finishing with a sailing high straight back. And the same from Artemov.
Shushunova, there just showing off party tricks, coming off her knees there. That shows the sort of bounce that she can get out of this runway.
Combination here of front and backward tumbling, starting with a front somersault walkout, finishing with a pike back somersault. Laschenova.
Series of punch front somersaults from Gogolatsa.
Just shows how springy that floor is, because on a gymnastic floor area, the most they could get would be a couple of punch fronts. Double back, whip back, flick flack, and another double back.
That somersaulting run that Boginskaya used in the last World Championships.
Shevchenko, a variety of flick flack somersaults, whip back, straight backs, and double backs. Handspring Barani, and a full twist to finish there.
Whip back somersaults, and then a high kick out back to finish with from Shushunova.
And that really shows the sailing height of the straight back with the tuck out. Here, Laschenova showing a series of whip backs. Half-twisting Arabian with a front somersault exit from Gogolatsa.
Boginskaya again. Flick, double straight back, whip back, straight into the flick flacks again, and then a full in back out to finish with, but he couldn't keep his feet.
Timing's essential on one of these springy floor areas. If they don't come in at the right angle, they can really disturb their tempo for the series of movements. Another sailing high straight back there.
Little Laschenova working out of the double back somersault. One of the things that's starting to come into.
Svetlana Boginskaya took a rest while the tumblers were in action, so that she had all of her energy for the floor routine. Svetlana Boginskaya, of course, won the silver medal in Seoul for this particular exercise. A very, very elegant gymnast.
There always seems to be one tall, elegant girl in the Soviet team. Shevchenko, and now Boginskaya.
And again, John, with a new element to open there, a full in back out, which she didn't do in Seoul. The routine will always be remembered for its unusual choreography. All the way through terrific musical interpretation. And again, a new element finishing with a double back. Svetlana Boginskaya really training for something big. New elements at the beginning and at the end of her floor routine. Olympic silver medalist in 1988.
So the Soviet gymnasts, relaxed and happy, come in to take their final bows. Next time we see them, it'll be much sterner stuff in the European and World Championships. You can see both of those on Eurosport. But from me and Monica, for the moment, goodbye.